sometimes, uh, sometimes that's how I get a message. I get it from a very up close, personal kind of view, and then I get it all the way at the other end, and that's because practitioners are of all different sorts, all different kinds, all different temperaments, all different understandings, all different levels of wisdom, all different kinds of challenges going on in your life at any given time. And so it's important for us to remember that when we have expectations concerning others. And it's difficult not to have expectations. That's how most of us are groomed, um, and particularly uh, in the West in our cosmopolitan atmosphere, and I would have to say, having traveled the world, a great deal of not, I won't say arrogance as much as I would say a kind of uppityness, because we're so used to certain comforts as our baseline. But when we go to other places, I would call it exotic, but we wouldn't tolerate it for a minute where we live. So I look at people who go to the Orient, or who go to like Cambodia and Sri Lanka and Thailand and places like this, and they sit outside in the scorching sun. The bugs are biting them day and night. Uh, they're walking around with no shoes on, and dusty feet, and all of these things. And all of that's part of the exotic experience, you know. But then when they come back home, they want all of these things, all of these benefits. They want things to be a certain way, or they can't practice, and that's because we've become accustomed to things being a certain way, a certain level of comfort that we feel that we are entitled to. And so this expectation sets us up for a lot of our stress and a lot of our anxiety, a lot of our unhappiness, a lot of our discontent. And the only one who can do anything about that, of course, is us. So I was talking this morning with Phyllis, and Phyllis, I don't know your new name yet, but I will start calling you that in a couple of days. What is it? Nidana. Okay. And I was talking with, well, if I say Nidana, you don't know what I'm talking about. I was talking to Phyllis, and she was saying how she realized in being in close proximity with someone here at Hartwood, that because she knew nothing about her background, she just knew that something rubbed her wrong, and that the person could ask for something nicely or whatever, and she would still just like have the edge there. And so she said, well, what I realized was that it was my edge, because she said, but now that I know this about the person, I understand them better, and I can also accept that way coming from them because it makes sense with their background. So the question is, why is it acceptable once you know their background, but it wasn't acceptable before for no other reason except that it rubbed you wrong? So I said, so what did you get from that? She said, I got from that was my issue. And that's how we practice. That's, it would be a really poor discipline that everything we looked at, we could ascribe to somebody else, that it's their fault, that they're doing something to me, that they're causing me to lose, or that, one would need to look for a different practice, because I'd hate to be part of something that I give my whole life and attention to and try to see through its lens, and all I get is oppressed and pressed down and overrun and overcome by everybody else. Where's the victory in that? There's no victory. Why would I waste my time doing it? So one has to really have some confidence in the life that they are living, the life that they say that they embrace, the ways of understanding things, the ways that we organize and put together information that speaks to our reality. We should be constantly thinking about when a thought comes up, how does this thought line up with what I hold to be true, what I have already examined and investigated and found to be true? How does this line up? And we should be looking for the highest and the best qualities to be on display and recognizing when they're not. And that's a full-time job. I mean, that would take all our time. We were talking this morning because she's getting ready to go into silence. She wants to do a silent meditation practice. And so, well, it's impossible to do a silent meditation practice without some preparation. I mean, like if you want to be successful at it, if you want to be able to say, I did a silent 30-day retreat, okay, fine. But this whole idea we have of what noble silence is, like it's not just not talking, right? We do know that. So when we're going into silence, there is a descent. There is a way that we set everything up. So I told her what we'll do this week, and I'm going somewhere with this, is that this first week, silence means you don't talk, but everybody else is going to be doing what they're doing. We talk about supporting someone in their practice, and that's really good, and we certainly do support people in their practice. But then when you get home, you have no support, and there goes your practice. So I like for a person to really have to know how to do their work when they get back home, and they're not in a wonderful, supportive environment. She goes home in 30 days. So I said, okay, so for your first week of silence, only you stop talking. Everybody else is going to be doing what they do. And I want to see how you respond to that. Okay, so suppose this week we decided we were going to go into, we were going to descend into the silence. Jhana doesn't have to be entered into just by sitting on a pillow. It really has to do with how disciplined and then released the mind is for us to enter into jhana, the different states of joy and bliss and equanimity or boundless generosity. So just you not talking, and look at how often the ears run out to hear what's being said, how often the eyes are fastened on something, how much the mind thinks about what it is seen and what is heard. And just use those 3 sense gates right there: seeing, hearing, thinking. And you'll start to notice that we are not overcome by distractions. We are like overcome by boredom. So if you start to sit and just sit, after about 15 seconds, first it's just let me sit here and collect myself, gather my thoughts, whatever. But after about 15 seconds, 1 minute at the most. What happens? Mind gets so bored with that. It starts going out to look for something. The mind starts to bring up something from last week, last month, last year. It starts to trip about what might happen in the next hour, tomorrow. It'll make up things like, oh, did I turn, we don't iron things anymore, do we?
Hardly.
Well, it used to be a big thing when I was younger. Like, did I turn off the iron before? We had to iron everything. We had, the guys, all the pants were creased. I mean, you could cut your finger on the crease. But it's a different day, different time. That was when we had shoelaces where we tied our shoes to instead of Velcroing. And so the mind actually gets bored with what we call nothing. And that's why we have so much difficulty in meditation. You can't always be running and engaging with the outside world and then sit down on the pillow and think one can just drop to no thing. It's a gradual acclimation, like walking into a dark room and your eyes gradually adjust. But as the eyes start to adjust to the darkness, you find that you can see more and more. And so this first week, what we'll do is like, you just don't talk and notice whenever your ears run to hear conversation. And then you remind yourself, I'm closing inward. I'm in silence. I'm withdrawing my sense gate. And see if you can just come back to your inner self, your silence, being self-contained. And you do that again and again, 100 times a day, maybe 1,000 times a day, that we have to do this. And we'll start to realize and to see that there are really no distractions. It's just a bored mind that runs to engage in something. And you'll start to lose the notion that somebody is disturbing you. I remember I gave a retreat over at Southern Dharma, and somebody came running in one day. She said, Venerable, they're talking over there in the parking lot. I mean, not the parking lot. They were over there on the grass somewhere. She said, they're over there talking, and we're supposed to be in silence, and they're bothering me. I said, can you hear them? She said, no, but I can see by their gestures that they're talking. They're in conversation. And I looked at it and I said, sister, you need to tend to your own mind. And then she went and reported me because I didn't make them stop talking. She went and reported me to the manager, but they know me. I told her that's the best training you could get today, is to not try to make everybody do what you want to do so that you feel better at what you do. So we have to overcome the odds through our own efforts. That's like using somebody else's legs to walk on. So this week, in celebration of Phyllis going into her first week of the month of silence and silent meditation, I'm asking some of you to join. And that means that we're not talking so much, but we're just noticing all of the conversations that we engage in. For those of us who are not really around other people, all of the mental proliferations. Thought arises, that's how we know it's not ours, because it shows up. It abides for a while, and it goes away. The only way it doesn't go away is that if we keep feeding it, adding a tagline to it, looking at it deeper and deeper, bringing it back again and again. That's why it's very difficult to stay angry with someone. I mean, you have to work work hard to stay angry with someone, because in a while the anger by itself goes away, unless you have an yeah. But I'm not through being mad with them. I got an email. I didn't get to address it yesterday. I was one of those where you have to give it a couple of days before you respond. But the person asked me to take care of something that's not within my control, has nothing to do with hardwood, has to do with another center. And she ended with, and don't make me have to write to my email list. So I had like 3 or 4 different responses crafted in about 30 seconds in my head. And I've been sitting on them, like which one is the best one. And I decided that there's no way, because she's bent on being angry, and she's bent on being angry with anyone who did not take her side in their dispute. And and sometimes it gets difficult to help someone like that. And this was something that happened 2 years ago, and I was asked to weigh in, and I did weigh in. But I wanted to tell her, sister, please give her a rest. She must be terribly, terribly tormented and unhappy to hold the thoughts that she holds in her mind. And then want to spew it all around, share it with everybody. So the best thing we can do when we have some kind of disturbing thoughts is to try to hold it first, keep it to ourselves. See if we can resolve our anger as opposed to the situation. And if we can resolve our anger, then we can address the situation. That's the best. If you can't do that, do the best you can do. Better to try to repair something that tore before you could catch it. Right? If you don't catch it in time, then try to repair. If you can't repair, then let a person be and be free with them. I didn't say be free of them. I said be free with them. It means wishing the best for them. It means supporting if you can. It means not harboring and holding thoughts such as he beat me, he robbed me, he took advantage of me, he hurt me, he said he loved me forever, he left me. I mean, this is he, she, whatever. Whatever it is, that one that you're holding on to. This could be the week that you withdraw the senses from the world and find that spaciousness that exists, that Buddha nature that exists, that Bodhi mind that exists. So we're spending these weeks embodying the Dharma. 50 weeks of practice, not study. Some of us are great at studying because it just feeds the mind and it feeds our sense of self. But I'm asking you to spend this week just noticing how much our eyes run out to grasp the world, how much our ears are itching for conversation, how much our mind seeks validation, the conceit I. And so she told me about another person in the community. And she said, oh, she has such patience. You know, and I just marvel because I want to have that kind of patience. I said, you know, it's really patience comes about as the result of something. When I was a Christian, you know, I wanted to have all the fine qualities of being right, but the qualities, the one quality I wasn't so keen on was patience because it said in the Bible, you know, patience comes through tribulation. I'm like, never mind. You know, I don't, you know, I'm trying to get out of tribulation. I don't have to go through things, but that's the only way that one develops patience. And one of the key aspects of the development of patience is humility. Humility. So one who has great patience is also one who has great humility. I'm not talking about looking pious or looking holy, but I'm talking about real humility, the kind that can allow you to be long-suffering. Long-suffering. It's not your first go-to place to straighten things out, to set your boundary, to set your ground, but it's to be long-suffering. And so she said, I noticed that this person, you know, has this quality of patience, but, you know, like, and how does that come about? I said, because whenever she's rebuffed, she just says, oh, okay, sister. And she sets about to try to carry out whatever she was asked to do. She might have a better way to do it. Or she may have been accused of something that she didn't really do. You know, that whole thing about accepting many blames. Being able to accept many blames. No, it doesn't matter. If it's in your power to like, just fix it, just fix it. But we always have to give an explanation. We always have to, you know, set a ground. It's almost like sinking our feet in, holding our position. So the second thing I'm asking us to do this week is to see if we can hold the ground of humility. Nobody has to know what we're doing. But count the instances that someone asks you for something, or someone asks you to do something, or someone questions why you did something, or someone questions whether you will do something. And see how the meanness, not meanness, but the M-E, the meanness, the I-ness arises, you know, that creates or is the ground for our response. Not that question, but what rises up in me when the question is posed. This is true practice. This is true Dharma. And the more we step away from an intellectual assent of it to putting it into practice, the closer we will be in moving towards. You need me to put this in. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. I thought I had it. we'll be coming to our true inheritance, that which is already in us, already operating. So I want to dovetail now a little bit around some of the words that we use that make us all okay and make us in the know in Buddha land. Right? We talk about insight into the true nature of things. We talk about seeing things as they are. And we talk about saying that nothing is worth getting or being. And I want to make sure we understand these two words, getting and being. So getting refers to, setting one's heart upon something. And it can be anything. It can be position, it can be wealth, it can be property. Just setting your heart on something. That's getting. Being refers to the awareness of one's status of husband, wife, mom, preacher, boss. It's the creation of an idea about who we are in relationship to others. So these are the two things that stumble us in life, the getting and the being. But if we really looked at it, being is really not a lot of fun. And now when you really look at it, it's weird, it's wearisome, because, it's a source of suffering. The minute that I identify with something, then there is an obligation for that to yield a certain benefit for me in life. And if I don't get that exactly as I, expected, or I define it one way and you define it a different way, then the suffering starts. So if we could give up the idea or the clinging to being, the less we will suffer. And this has to be a constant practice because every day, all day, we're into our mind with our plans. Our plans, our thoughts about what we want to do, when we want to do it, how we want to do it, where we want to do it, why we want to do it. It's a constant cycle. I read something somewhere that said we have something like 1 million thoughts a day. We can't even keep track of them. Program running in the background. So if we want to be able to descend into that boundless spaciousness, we first have to be aware of where we actually are. And we have to practice not holding, grasping, clinging to any thought, to any view. It doesn't mean we can't have a view, but just not clinging to a view. That's what makes us flexible or inflexible. is having with you and clinging to it. The third thing, somebody keep track of these assignments. The third thing for us to work on this week is recognizing our view and how well we do at clinging to it or not clinging. Okay, 3 assignments. What's the first one?
To see one,
Talking.
yeah, like to see one either thought, speech, or our ears are running out to avoid boredom.
Mm-hmm. Where your ear gate is wide open, attracted to sound, eye gate wide open, looking for something, mind tripping back past and future to think something, to avoid the boredom of the sounds that you said you wanted. First, we have to really want it. We have to think that there's some benefit to entering into it. And that's what allows us to arouse zeal to be able to investigate the sound. To touch it, not just with the mind, but to also touch it with the body. Noticing how it feels to the whole body. He talked about it. He said it brings waves and ripples of pleasure. If sounds doesn't bring that to you, haven't finished your journey into sound. He said, notice when one folds inward, what happens to the body and to the mind. And that sweetness of non-identification. And that silence, you don't have to be anything to anybody. You're not required to engage in conversation, give a response. You don't have to think about whatever it is they're talking about. And after a while, it'll bounce and it'll come right back to you. The ear gate will go out and come right back. I go out, it will see something and find no landing spot. That's all. No landing spot. And it'll come right back. Preferring nothing. And then one will notice how refreshing that is. Don't do more than you can do. Because then it gets to not be, it gets to be tedious. And it becomes an effort. But I'm asking you to just observe. I'm sort of in that mood today. It's hard to even engage. And the more you practice this, just a little bit here and there, you need something to compare it with. Right? Somebody's blowing up this phone. Can you move this? I don't know how I get 12 messages at 12, between 12 and 1. Thank you. If there's an emergency, let me know. If it's not. But you'll find yourself taking these breaks, these moments, and not that it's I won't say it's a pause. One learns to pause and step outside of getting and being. There is that place that one can enter into right here, right now. It's a balancer, and it's a stabilizer. And it also trains the mind to be steady. And in the steadiness, one becomes confident. You have less anxiety. You'll have less fear as you go through the week. What's number 2?
Having versus being.
But you started the sentence. What was number 2?
Having versus being.
Oh, having
Versus being.
versus getting versus.
Oh, getting versus being.
Okay. And what is getting?
Setting your heart on something.
Setting your heart on something. And what's being?
The identity that comes from clinging to relationality.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Everybody got it out there? Now, the trouble and the struggle necessary to maintain our state of being is really just the result of blind infatuation with things. No, it really is. Because we notice that things are constantly changing. They may change fast, they may change slow, but they're always in flux, always changing. And at a particular time, we are infatuated with something. We think it's the best thing since sliced bread, or we're infatuated with somebody. But you look a month down the road, a week down the road, tomorrow, based on, certain conditions come into fruition, everything can change. No longer, in fact, infatuated. And then what? That's where the blame starts. Well, they did this. Oh, they didn't do this. Oh, they promised that they would do this. We had an agreement. Oh, and always looking there. But the practice this week is to look at our getting and being. Okay, so is anybody, and what's the third one? What was that, the third one?
No, third was to work on and to notice when we're clinging to our views or not clinging to our views and how our moment experiences arising in the face of it.
Mhm. Looking to well, first of all, when we have a view, recognizing that we have a view. Most of the time we have views and we deny that we have a view. That's just your perception of what I'm thinking. Right? So recognizing that we have a view and then looking at how flexible we can be in holding that view. That means allowing there to be other input, another way of looking at something that may be offered by someone else. I'm not saying that you have to agree with it. I'm just talking about your flexibility of allowing that view to be present, because that is the other person's view. And how much different your interaction can be if instead of you trying to convince them that their view is wrong, if you can just hold your own view without grasping and without identifying with it. You know, there's a status that comes with our view. Mhm. And we have to talk these things out because we're so highly intellectualized. You know, that we have to come and give all of these step by step things. But in some cultures, it doesn't take all of this talking. Just say, if the sign says do not enter, it just means don't enter. You know, it's not the question of, well, why? Why can't I enter? Why it doesn't make sense to walk all the way around this way? Like, does that go for everybody or just me? You know, all of these things that come to our mind because we don't have the custom of yielding. We don't have the custom of group harmony as much as we do individualism. It's just finding out the things that we need to work on. And seeing that when we see it and tend to it, the kind of inner strength and sense of well-being we inherit, or we unleash, I could say. So I think I want to open up now. That's all I wanted to talk about and ask us to work on. You know, it's amazing. Some of you know or may have witnessed, we did a temporary lay ordination. You know, we call it temporary lay ordination because they're taking the vows, but they're not saying that I take these for life. But every ordination could be temporary. We don't know how long we'll keep it. So, but what I noticed is something only has as much meaning as we give it. Some may think, no, it's nothing. They don't give that much respect to it. And someone else takes it really seriously, puts it in the forefront of their attitudinal development. Take it very seriously. But I've already noticed how the shift in how we speak to one another and making commitment. We just took those vows. And I hear, yes, sister. Thank you, sister. Oh no, brother, that's okay. Just a kindness and a softness and an attentiveness that is naturally arising, are looking for the good qualities and the same people that we were like really pointing out the bad qualities in, a week ago. But as we prepared, bit by bit every day for this, turning our mind and our sights more fully on the ordination, what does it mean? And they would ask me, what does it mean? I said, I don't know. What does it mean to you? What does it mean that we're doing this? I don't know. What does it mean to you? Why are you doing it? And each coming up with what it could mean to them. And I can see it, can feel it. Just don't lose it. So now I'm really going to open up for 10, 11 minutes. If anyone wants to share anything from last week, any questions about this week, feel free. Yeah. Can you pause?
So I have a question, and I was wondering whether you could explain a little bit the difference between sort of nothing is worth being and nothing is worth getting to what I might understand, might not understand at all, but I get the impression there is a lot of rank in the Buddhist world. Sort of who does what and who goes first and who goes later or maybe not at all, and the reverence that I observe. And when I listen, when I observe it, I have the impression this must be this must be completely different. It's not about who anybody is, but then I do get confused, and I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to this. Thank you.
So every quality has its own character, and we respond to that. Right? So it's not as much a hierarchy. Well, for some it actually is, but that has to do with the misunderstanding in their mind. To whom much is given, much is required, and to whom, to the one that shows a certain quality of being, respect is automatically shown. It's like rewarding bad behavior. Do you do that? No. And so a lot of times when we're looking, the goal and the practice is leading towards the showing of respect and honor for that which is worthy of respect and honor. So I look at maybe sometimes I have difficulty understanding how parents raise their children today. Because they have not taught them manners. They have taught them say anything you want to say. You have as much right to say anything as anyone else. But coming from an immature mind, how would that person's mind be fashioned thinking the highest and the best way, unless there's some training involved? So I see children hit their parents, kick their parents, bite their parents. And I see parents who can't handle their children at all, And it's that way I think, in every aspect of our life, including the spiritual life. So the one who gives the most, why would that one not be worthy of your respect and of your honor? Do you have to call it hierarchy? the one who's the head of all should be the servant of all. And those who recognize that servitude give respect and honor to what is wrong. The one who comes and wants the respect and honor, and they have not put in, the work, they don't give it, then that one is looking at ranking and order. So don't you naturally hold someone in high esteem if their qualities are good? It's a question.
Did you ask? Did you ask me that question?
Yeah.
Yes, I do, and thanks for explaining it. It's getting clearer now. Thank you.
So a lot of times, like when I'm with my teacher, she may say something that I like fiercely disagree with, But if she does, then I'll go to her privately after and say, you said such and such, But this is the way I look at it. Like I really disagree. But I won't stand up and say, well, you're wrong, and this is what I want to talk about. And so I remember one time we had it was in a Sunday, and there was a visitor, and I said something, and that's exactly what he did. He says, well, I disagree with that. I said, you can. I said, but right now you're not going to be able to take over my class. If you want to talk to me about it afterwards, you're welcome to. I'd love to have a dialogue with you. And I just shut him down right there because he showed no respect. And then we became good friends, and he still comes to the Dharma occasionally. But he had to have the experience of not being free to like say anything he wanted to say, any kind of way he wanted to say it, and be disruptive to the whole group. And it was really around his confusion, around the subject matter, the teaching matter. But as I could have the time to sit with him one-on-one and to explain, like he understood it better. But he also learned how to be respectful when you come into somebody's place, And so there are these times that I think manners are important. It shows our civility, and without it, we'll just be in a Game of Thrones series. And I see that happening in the Buddhist world. As we are mixing or trying to be available to address some of the things that are going on in the world, some of the issues going on. But because we haven't resolved certain things within ourselves, we get caught up in these and we take on the attitudes and the behaviors of the unmindful. So I think we're in a time that we have to really, really step by step practice what we say we embrace, practice what we need to do our work. We need to do our personal work. I'm trying to save the world. If I save myself, I think I saved part of the world, because it takes out of the world my anger, my hostility, my ignorance, my frustration. And that requires a process of training. Because for so long, we've just walked free to do whatever we want, say whatever we want, come and go however we please. And when somebody voluntarily, not by force, but they come to submit themselves to a training track so that they learn how to discipline themselves. This is the real work. But a lot of times when they come, though, they don't want you to tell them anything. Then why come? You don't have to come. I won't tell you anything. But if you come and you ask the question, then there should be enough respect to listen to the answer, contemplate the answer, try to put it into practice. If it doesn't work for you, he really said throw it out. So nobody's forced to do anything. But when one makes up within their own mind that they want to walk a certain way in the world, they embark upon this study. And these trainings help us to arouse our sense of equality person to person, our humility, pull back on our grasping, pull back on our neediness, all the things we weren't able to do for ourselves, but we thought to be able to live like that would be a good life. And so that's all I'm saying. So when we talk about hierarchy or we talk about order, it's just like being in a family. In a family, the child can't be the parent. In a family, there's certain stations and there's a certain order for the effective functioning of the family. There's a certain amount of wisdom that the parents are expected to have and must exercise for the family to be healthy. And there's a certain amount of yielding that trains us to be able to hold ourselves in any situation in life. Now, I'm not saying that this is the best way. I've come to the conclusion, maybe it's not. But when I was a child, things were a lot different. And I mean, if I did something wrong at school and that somebody, it's all over town. By the way, on my way home, 5 parents coming outside. I get 5 whoopings before I get to my house. And but like anybody's parent corrected you in those days, and so it makes a difference in our and I think we came out a little bit better. And I would say to my son, like when I woke him, I say, I beat you so that you won't get out there in the street and act like this with somebody who doesn't love you. Because when they beat you, they might kill you. And it was my way of disciplining. And I can say today, I think you get locked up for that. But my son's still here. My son did well in life. My son learned how to be respectful. He learned when to step forward and when to step back. He learned how to step down and take down sometimes, because that could be the difference in him keeping his life and losing his life, especially as a young Black man. I mean, so we did the training that was necessary to be able to know how to keep ourselves in all situations. So there is a place for hierarchy. All hierarchy is not bad. There's a place, I had someone who lived here for a long time, and he was an anarchist. And he was trying to explain to me about anarchy. And my view of anarchy was people like just going ballistic and doing whatever they wanted to do and smashing windows. He said, well, that's the way you look at it. But for us, anarchy is going against the establishment. They may not be busting out windows. Instead, they're stealing all your wealth. They may not be, and so he talked about, and this is our way of protesting against that, to destroy the things that they love and that they cherish. I said, so both of our views then of anarchy are right. And do I choose anarchy? No, I don't. So that's a perfect example of how we can have different views about something. Yes, I think the system has great corrections needed, but I don't think the answer answer then is to go down on Wall Street, smash out the windows, and light a match to people's small businesses and things like that. You know, so in every conversation, and I like the fact that you asked the question, because there is a line between demanding respect and one offering respect. And I would say for myself, I wouldn't demand. If you can't give it, then what have I gotten by trying to demand it? I won't have it. But if you're outside of that grouping, like as you are as a lay person, and you don't see all of the intricate training that goes into changing and shifting one's mind from being self-centered to being community-centered, then it could look a certain way to you. So I thank you for asking the question. Everything is the same everywhere, isn't it? A community, a family, a society. This is all just reverberations of the same thing. The same questions, the same scenarios. So the wisdom is what to do in this particular situation with this particular person. No one rule fits everything. And the rules and the guidelines are made for us. We're not made for them. That's Tokum. Tokum gets confused all the time because if you tell Tokum something and say, well, it's like this, then from there on, Tokum is right on it. And if she sees you deviate this much, I'm confused, sister, because this is the rule. And so just watching her navigate and using the rule as a guideline to form a basis for assessment and action is really wonderful, because before it was like hard, staunch, and fast, the rule, and if she didn't know the rules, she didn't know it. But once you gave it to her, it was like, thank you, sister, for that, and I'm like, thank me for that. She says, yes, thank you for that. I'm like, oh, Lord. And, but then to see her take that and begin to use it to form the basis, of how she will think and how she will respond, how she will act, in situations. That's how it transfers from just information into wisdom that we can use, in every part of our life. Whether you're monastic, whether you're lay, whether you're part of a family, whether you're part of a tribe, whether it's all the same. Anyone else want to express something? You have to ask a question.
I wanted to say something, if that's okay. I went to the wrong room. And I was the second person in the hall, and I was already in meditation, and all of a sudden I woke up, came to. The whole room was filled with people I had never seen before. And I said hello to someone and they didn't answer. And then, so I deduced that this was the retreat and they were in silence. So And then I just thought, well, what's, I just sat there and I was like, okay, so now we're gonna meditate. So we meditated together with people. I was like, where are all my friends? All the people I know are not here. And, I saw it as just an opportunity to meditate, and I didn't know if if I was gonna be in trouble, if I was gonna be called out, if someone was gonna be like, who are you? What are you doing here? But instead I saw it as like a lesson. It's okay. We're all here doing the same thing. And in some weird synchronicity, I come over here because Clear Sessions came over to turn off their sound system, and then she said, you can come with me if you want. And I said, oh, okay, yeah. And I come over here and you start talking about how you should be allow silence and be mindful of your ear gate being open. As I was sitting in the other room, I was like, gosh, that air conditioning is really loud, and where is everyone? And I think I hear something, so it just sort of came together in some wonderful way in the end. So I wanted to mention that as an aside.
Thank you. I have a retreat that starts on the 10th, and I can't tell you about the emails that I'm getting. Like, could you give me the schedule so that I can start preparing for getting up at whatever time we're going to get up? Could you tell me what we're going to be doing? Are we recording this so that I can listen? It was like, I said, well, I can't give you a schedule because we don't function with the schedule. Even if you miss the morning class, you won't know where the afternoon class is if you weren't there, because I might say, meet me at 12:30 over in the Grove somewhere. And people just don't know how to function with it. As if spontaneity is a dirty word. If everything is not thought out, planned out, and that's how we live our lives. That is, that's how we've gotten trapped. And this is a path of awakening. It doesn't keep all of those things. We want to have those things because we think that's what makes our world neat and orderly. But our world is not neat and orderly. We're trying to try something else. We're trying to do something else. One way that the Buddha said that we know that we're getting to it is by our joy. So if you all cantankerous and I have some words in my mind, but I told you I was in a little different space today, and I'm not using them because they don't fit today. But you can just drop any word in there. Then you need to look at the what's and the how's and the ways that you relate to the Dharma, because he said that when you're on point, there's a joyousness in your life. And it can be hard out here. Whatever is going on can be intense, and yet the joy just bubbles right up through all of that. And we find every day a pleasure, sick or well, every day a joy, winning or losing, every day victorious, whether we encounter praise or blame, every day worth living, regardless of whether there was shame or fame. Every day we encounter these 8 worldly winds, and they are just the 8 worldly winds. Nothing worth clinging to, the good or the bad, the beautiful or the ugly. And that's when your practice will cease to be practice, and you will be embodying it's 1:13, so I'm gonna end now. I thank you so much. We normally are meeting now in the Dharma Hall, but we have a retreat going on. So the retreatants from Wild Heart are in the Dharma Hall, and that was what he was referring to. There was a sign on the door.
He must have been in there before it was on.
Okay. So I'll let you know if I have anything to say, if somebody comes to me later and says, somebody was in our retreat bothering us. No, but those teachers are dumb charged. They got it going on. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Okay, I might have said this last week, but I'm definitely saying it for next Tuesday. I'm not talking. So come with your stories. Write it down if you have to, so you don't forget it. I know when we have an insight, it's like huge at the moment. But if we don't like put it into our memory bank, we lose the essence of it. But if we do, if we recite it, if we remind ourselves, if we share it with someone, it strengthens others, and it becomes deeper within us, and then we respected that insight that we had. It's not just a little something figment in our mind. It becomes something, a bit of truth that we nourish and that we hold, and this is how we grow. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you and no danger. May you be able to meet the inevitable.